This is episode 70 of the Sports Business Classroom audio experience. Today's guest is the one and only Max Miller. If you're someone who's interested in sports video production, content, or storytelling, you're going to absolutely love this episode. Max has had an incredible array of experience and has led projects with many of the top brands in sports, including the NBA Summer League, Adidas, Mercedes-Benz, DraftKings, and many, many more. In this episode, we discuss the keys to good storytelling, the 7 deadly camera sins, and the skills he looks for when hiring. Ladies and gentlemen, this was an absolute masterclass that I know you'll get a lot out of, as good content is king. And everyone who wants to work in sports needs to have an understanding of good storytelling. Without further ado, I give you Max Miller. All right, Max, welcome to Sports Business Classroom. Class is in session. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm excited.
I'm excited too, man. It's been a long time since I've done this, so bear with me here, but really excited to talk to you today and for you to drop a bunch of knowledge as it relates to sports video production. This is going to be awesome. I don't know anybody that has the wide range of skill sets that you have, and really excited to introduce you to our listeners and for you to share all the tips and tricks of the trade.
I'm happy to be the test subject.
Love it. Love it. So before we get into video production and sports and all that fun stuff, why don't you give us a little bit of background? Tell us where you're from, how you grew up, what was your childhood like?
Sure. Grew up in Carlsbad, California, down in San Diego. So San Diego sports fan through and through. Grew up in sports and around sports my whole life. Baseball, football, pretty much anything I could get my hands on, or anything I could try. All pretty much team sports, but just loved it, and have gained pretty much all the relationships that I have with friends, and my entire social life has been based around sports. So that was kind of why I wanted to take my life in this direction, just because it had meant so much to me, and done so many things for me. Sports has, and so yeah, I wasn't biggest, wasn't the strongest, wasn't the fastest ever. So I knew going professional was never really an option, but at least being around the game as much as I could, that was kind of the goal. So I played football into high school, and a couple years in college, Chapman University, little D3 school.
What position did you play?
I played defense. I was a defensive back, and then pretty much to be able to see the field any way I could, I just played wherever they'd put me back there, safety, corner, strong safety, free safety, whatever.
Okay, awesome. At what point did the dream die of playing pro sports?
Oh, about middle school. By the time I was about 12 and, saw all the other kids growing a foot taller than me and getting, bigger, stronger, faster than me. And I, looking at both my parents, I was like, yeah, I ain't going pro in anything.
Okay. All right.
So yeah, I was kind of realistic, I guess, about it. I still loved it and knew I was going to play as long as I could. My dad always said, make him tear the jersey off your back. Right. So I went with that approach, but knew I was never going to get paid to do it.
Okay. And at what point did video production and content and all that good stuff kind of enter into the picture?
So I got extremely lucky and blessed to be a part of a program in middle school, a broadcasting elective class. And the teacher of that elective class was heavily involved and taught that class as well as the same class at the high school. And we, in middle school, produced a bi-weekly show, 15-minute news show or 10-minute news show that went out to the entire school, and was rated one of the top middle school broadcasts in the country in terms of middle school news, just because the teacher was so over the top and put so much of his time and effort into it and resources. And we had, it was just the things we were producing at that age, 12, 13, 14 years old was pretty remarkable. And so I kind of saw very early on that could be an option for me, to potentially keep me around the game of sports. I obviously watched a ton of sports growing up. SportsCenter was always on the TV. If there was a game, ESPN was just always on, right? And so I recognized that being behind the camera or being around it, not actually even then it was in front of the camera or behind the camera, whatever. I thought being a SportsCenter anchor one day would be, the coolest thing ever. that's when
you wanted to be Scott Van Pelt.
I did want to be Scott Van Pelt. Yeah. Kenny Mayne, John Anderson, like, yeah, those are the guys I remember being like, they're the coolest people ever. Like I could do that. Right. And being able to have a platform where I was broadcasting to the entire school. But what was cool about the class and the program all the way from 7th grade through 12th grade is every person in the class is required to do every job. So whether you wanted to or not, you had to be on camera. You had to be behind the camera. You had to be on audio. You had to be on graphics. You had to learn how to edit. So I got to get my hands on everything from 7th grade pretty much on,
Wow.
which was, it was unparalleled. I mean, especially, and this is, I don't know, 15 years ago now, more. So quite a while ago, before it was, cell phones. There was no cell phone cameras. It was flip phones and stuff like that. So,
Right.
it was. I was incredibly lucky and incredibly blessed to be in that position at a young age to have that advantage.
And what was the teacher's name?
Mr. Green.
Mr. Green.
Mr.
Okay.
Green.
Well, one day when you win a sports Emmy, you can thank Mr. Green.
Yeah.
Shout out to Mr. Green.
Oh, shout out to Mr. Green. And there's dozens of people from that program that are now working in news, in film, in the NFL specifically, in broadcasting and stuff like that. So, it's pretty remarkable that program from our one high school town has turned out so many talented people, and it's a huge testament to Mr. Green. I mean, none of us would be where we are today without him.
Well, it's amazing that you had that opportunity. Is he still there?
He just retired.
He just retired.
I think I saw this last year was his last year. He won like a California State Teacher of the Year a couple of years ago, in one of his final years, and it might have even been a National Teacher of the Year, and whatever it was, he deserved it. All the recognition that he's gotten.
Wow. So it sounds like he set the career path for quite a few different people.
Yep. And we'd have. I just remember in high school, even in middle school, going down to the local news stations in San Diego and having tours and being able to apprenticeships and day in the life things where we'd follow them and go out in the field with them and just getting to see what they do. They would anchors and TV people and producers would come to our class and see what we do and then give us feedback. I was incredibly lucky and blessed, basically.
So that was all throughout middle school?
Middle school and high school. Yeah.
Okay. So you were part of that program through middle school and high school. Mm-hmm. Is that what you went to college for?
Yeah. So Carlsbad High School, and there basically so many people from Carlsbad High School and from this program specifically had been going to Chapman University. There was like 3 or 4 a year, going straight from that program into Chapman, into their film school and broadcast production program, that the dean of the university of that college came down to Carlsbad to see what was going on. And so I got to meet him, I think my sophomore or junior year, and it was kind of a direct track. I mean, Chapman knew the quality of student they were getting from Carlsbad. So I had it very lucky that I got to do that. I applied to a few other schools, but Chapman was it was just lined up too perfectly. I was able to play football as a Division III school, they don't have scholarships. It's all walk-ons. It was a level of play that I could compete at.
Keep the dream alive. And also do broadcasting at a school that is good for film and production. So it kind of worked out perfectly that way. And what's the exact major?
Television broadcast journalism, and then I ended up with a documentary emphasis. At my time there was a broadcast journalism emphasis, a documentary emphasis, and a narrative television emphasis. And I felt like I had gotten a lot of the broadcasting skills in high school, like the news type of stuff, because we had a control room, a daily show, we're producing packages. And what the program at Chapman was doing was not too different than that. So I wanted to kind of get a variety of skills and branch out a little bit, and so the long form storytelling format really interested me. So that's why I decided to go the documentary route, and was glad I did.
So I went to business school, and I know very little about what the actual curriculum looks like. So tell us a little bit about what the curriculum might look like in college if you decide to pursue a similar track.
Yeah, I mean, it was great. There was what I learned early on, and that I don't think I did a good job coming in my first 2 years at school, was I came in thinking I knew everything because I had come from such a heralded program, and everyone had kind of told us that we were so far advanced and we're doing such great things, that I came in as this 18-year-old who thought I knew everything, and then after about 2 years figure out I knew nothing. But so I I kind of took those first 2 years off, and basically I say off, but I slacked off in classes. I could get by and get A's in all my classes because I knew it, but I knew what they were looking for and knew how to do all the technical stuff coming into it. But what I kind of realized was in college, or at least at Chapman, the professors will give all A's, but you get out what you put in. So if you're going to go above and beyond on your assignments, it's going to, you're going to advance in your skill set and your, knowledge faster. So, better. So that was kind of something a harsh reality that hit me after about 2 years of college and just being a young kid, figuring it all out.
Yeah. Part of growing up.
So yeah, I mean, from technical classes and stuff like that, there was some my first 2 years I just skated by, did the bare minimum, I guess you could say. And then I kind of realized, okay, I need to put more into it. If I spend the extra time going above and beyond, trying to have the best project in class, or not even just the best project in class, just the best project that I can do, that I know that I'm capable of, it'll go, a long way in the long run.
Right. Because I'm sure what probably happened is you got there, you thought you were the man, and you are the man, but you start looking around and you're like, all these people are talented too. Right. Mm-hmm. And whereas you could have taken the opportunity to expand upon your skills, and because you had some of the basic skills, you could have maybe been more creative than others because you weren't needing to learn the technical side, like anything else, right? When you spend time with people that are better than you, more talented than you, you kind of look around and you don't want to be the low man on the totem pole, right?
Right. And what I saw, I think more so for me, what I saw was people that I knew freshman year were coming in with zero skills, zero knowledge, completely green. And by end of sophomore year, junior year, they were starting to make stuff that I was like, that's better than what I can do.
Right.
And so I watched them pass me up, and I was like, oh, okay. That was kind of the wake up call for me. And I think something like just a life skill, life lesson type of thing that I also found myself learning around that time was I would see people doing stuff that were better than me even freshman year, and I would make excuses. Oh, they have access to better equipment. They've been doing this longer, whatever it was. When I kind of grew out of that and stopped making excuses and saying, no, I can, with the resources I have, I can do that too, right? I just need to put more time in than them maybe, or whatever it may be. So I stopped making excuses for myself. And so it's just, that's all part of college though, right? That's all part of growing up. I guess I'm all the better for it now, but it did take a couple of years of learning and being humbled.
Yep, absolutely. It's all part of the process. At what point did sports-related content come into play? I mean, I know, from what you'd said earlier that you'd always had an interest in sports and staying in sports. At what point did you decide, okay, rather than create documentaries or a movie or whatever it might be, did you decide, you know what, I'm going to put a little bit more effort into creating cool stuff as surrounding sports?
In high school, I was always on the field. I was always playing, right? We had a sports reporter who, from middle school, he was the same age as me, and every year he was the guy. He was never the guy on the field, even from 12, 13 years old. So he was the dedicated sports reporter, and he was dedicated. He went to every sport in high school, from freshman girls volleyball to varsity football. So he kind of owned that space. And then in college, playing football, and then stopping after 2 years. It was a tough pill to swallow to be then on the other side of it, filming it when it was all the guys that I was on the field with just previously. So I really didn't do as much as now I would have liked. Looking back, I would have liked to do more around college sports. And I also looked down on it as being a D3, the level of it. Oh, this isn't Division I. I'm not going to get the stuff I'm going to do here is not going to be as good as if I were going to a USC or, an Alabama or a Clemson, because it's just Division III sports. Whereas now I'm looking back, and that was very foolish. And again, just things that I learned along the way. But I did intern for a ESPN 30 for 30 documentary in college, and that was kind of a amazing, great experience that I tried to take advantage of and do as much for as I could. And do little things here and there, little freelance gigs and stuff like that after college. But it was really once I got to HallPass that sports production became my, full-time thing, what I was doing, what I was focused on. And I got very lucky for that because I didn't have a ton to show in the sports-related production field. I just always said that was what I wanted to do, but I didn't take the steps that I think I probably should have or could have to grow in that field at a younger age.
Yeah, well, they say hindsight's 20/20, right?
Right.
But let's just go back to the 30 for 30 thing. How did you get involved with that, and what did you have to do as it relates to that project?
I think I found it on like Craigslist or something.
There you
Like
go.
I don't
Craigslist
even
for the win.
I don't. Oh, it was, and the guy who made it his name was Craigslist Joe, and he made a movie about. He traveled the country just on Craigslist, reaching out to people with no money. He didn't bring any money with him, and he made it all the way around the U.S. from Washington State to Maine to Florida back to California. And then he ended up getting. I learned about the whole process from him. It was actually a 30 for 30 short, so it was like a digital online kind of thing. It was a 15-minute film about the schedule makers who create the schedule for Major League Baseball. A lot of people don't know, but it was up until about this, I guess, 10 years ago now. It was just made by this old couple for about 60 years. It was made by this like couple that lived in like Pennsylvania or something, just out of their living room, and had spreadsheets on big paper wide huge things where they would every team and they'd have to do all the scheduling, and they did it from that living room or their basement for I don't know how many years it was. So that was what the film was about. And so I helped with each step of the process, a lot of the research. I went on some shoots and helped do some interviews, got to shoot a little bit of the B-cam stuff for the interviews. And then in post-production helped out with some of the assistant editing and things like that. So yeah, it was a very, very cool experience. And like once those 30 for 30 started coming out, I was like, this is what I want to do. Like, this is amazing. This is incredible. And so to get to learn, I learned a lot about the business side of it, being a part of it on the back end, and also, obviously a ton about the production side too, and hiring contractors in different cities for shoots and all those things.
And at what point did you decide you didn't want to be in front of the camera?
I think that was kind of decided for me. No, I mean, I did it in high school. I loved it. And I got to college, and I just kind of took a look around, and I was like, I think I have a better skill set behind the camera than I do in front of the camera. It was kind of that. I felt like I was a more valuable asset to the team behind the camera than in front of the camera.
Okay. And you mentioned HallPass. Talk a little bit about how you got that job.
Jake Schultz. I owed all that. No.
Shout out to Jake Schultz.
Shout out to Jake Schultz. No, it was through Chapman. I mean, there was a Chapman Facebook group that is for all the film school, Chapman Film Connections. We still use it. That's how we find a lot of our interns here at Chapman. But Chapman HallPass had an intern from Chapman, and he was finishing up his semester. You guys were looking for somebody. This was 2014, 2015-ish. Mm-hmm. That intern that posted in the group happened to know my younger brother, who was at Chapman at the time. I was a couple years out. And so I reached out to my brother, got in touch with him. He put me in touch with you guys. And I came on to do a couple of different freelance gigs. You guys were doing the Lot Trophy at the time, mm-hmm. Lot Impact Trophy. So I worked that with you guys, and then you guys were on the Adidas circuit, and I edited some Adidas grassroots videos. And then Albert approached me about coming to the summer league and going out to the summer league, and that was in 2015. And really got thrown into the fire there in that first year. But after just kind of seeing that as my opportunity, being at the NBA Summer League and basically taking ownership of it, and wasn't going to let anybody outwork me there. I was kind of I could tell it was kind of a precipice of my career, I felt like. I had just been working freelance video production gigs here and there, but really my main source of income was a restaurant, as a server. And I was, with a college degree, ready to take that next step professionally. And so I saw the opportunity and did whatever I was going to take to try to get noticed. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think I was, in the gym for about 20 hours a day for the entire 2 weeks we were there. Had no idea what I was doing, but tried, to do everything I could at the highest level I could possibly do it, even if it meant not sleeping. And that's kind of what ended up happening.
Right. Yeah. I mean, look, so just to recap, this was 7 years ago. Mm-hmm. You basically got the job as a result of a Facebook group. Mm-hmm. You were the right person at the right time. And then the first summer that you were brought on, it was a tough summer. I remember those summers when we did Summer League. the Adidas circuit, lot impact trophy, back to back to back, right? But one of the things that always stood out to me about you is that you always went above and beyond to do the best that you could, regardless of whether you were asked to do something that you were capable of, or maybe it was something that you had to learn, right? But I think that being the right person at the right time is so underrated. And if you go back to the episode I did with Jake Kelfer, right? Similar story, right? He was the right person at the right time, stepped in, did a fantastic job. And in your case, here you are 7 years later, working on a bunch of cool properties.
Right. And I mean, to echo that and to kind of go, obviously I talked about earlier learning in college about going above and beyond and not just doing the bare minimum. But I think it was like you said, right person at the right time. But it was because I had learned a lot doing all these variety of jobs in high school broadcasting. So I knew each position in the control room, but because I knew each position in the control room, when I did other internships and jobs and things like that over the course of high school and college, I learned different skill sets from not just camera operator, not just an editor, not just an on-air person, but I also learned how to do some of the AV stuff or was able to figure it out because I had these various different skill sets and pieces. So, I mean, I'll be the first to tell you, I'm not the best video editor. I'm not the best cameraman, not the best producer, director, but I found out that like I could become a Swiss Army knife, and I tried to become a Swiss Army knife and try to learn as many different skills and broaden my knowledge base and technical skills as much as I could. And so when I came into HallPass, I was kind of intimidated and scared because I was seeing these big brands and names and properties that I didn't think that the videos I produced was necessarily up to that caliber that should be on those platforms or channels or be representing those brands. But I didn't realize it until I got into it that there was a lot more that HallPass did and needed help with that I could supplement my lack of, I guess, skill set or abilities by. So, like the AV stuff that you guys do at an events, or from, setting up TVs and digital signage to PA systems and slideshows and projectors and all that stuff. Like I had just enough of an understanding that I kind of used that as a way to step up, that I felt like I needed to step up and do to supplement my, I guess, lack of skill set that I felt like I had.
Yeah, and so much is said these days about developing expertise in just one area, right? And I think you and I would both agree, because we're similar in that vein, that there's a lot of benefits to being well-rounded, right? When you're well-rounded, you understand a little bit better how all the dots can connect, right? Whereas if you just specialize in something, and I'm not saying that that's a bad thing to do, right? But if you specialize in one particular area, you may become great at that particular thing, but you may not see how it connects with all the other parts of the business or with everything else that the business is trying to accomplish, right? So again, shout out to Mr. Green.
Yeah, shout out to Mr. Green
for giving you the opportunity, right? And look, I think that there's something to be said that you being able to have that experience at such a young age, right? Like at that time, you may have thought to yourself, man, I'd rather be playing with my friends. I'd rather be doing this, whatever it might be. But putting in the work all that time, back in middle school has basically led you to where you are today.
Right.
Right. And like I said, you get to work on a bunch of cool properties, right? Why don't you share with the audience some of the properties that you work on and what your current role looks like here at HallPass?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, the NBA Summer League, and like what most people listening to this are probably aware of. It's that's always a big project for us every year and a big event. But there's a ton of other stuff that we do throughout the year and that we've done over the years. This sports business classroom is one of them, right? And we were always trying to look for ways to develop and expand that. Producing a podcast is one of the things that falls into that umbrella, but digital events for that. We've run virtual events. We've run the event on site, trying to provide AV support for that, as well as capture everything that happens there from a photo and video perspective, and then being able to tell that story. We also produce a podcast that we're kind of building a brand for called Missin Curfew. That's a hockey podcast run by a couple former NHL players, Shane O'Brien and Scotty Upshaw. And that's been a very, very fun project of mine, because it's kind of, if you listen to the podcast, it's very much of a locker room feel, and that's just how those guys are. They act like, they're still in a locker room, regardless of the situation, which, I guess now that I've worked with them, I think that was one of the reasons that I wanted to get into sports, is because all of my entire social circle has come from the relationships I've built from sports, and it's that locker room feel of being buddies, and being able to cut up and just it's a different type of relationship. It's a different type of dynamic. So in addition to producing the podcast for Missin Curfew in our studio, we also do a lot of live shows, which has afforded us a lot of opportunities to travel to cool events, and not just hockey, but Super Bowl, PGA Tour events. DraftKings is a big partner with that. So getting to work with a variety of partners, now getting into the sports gambling space, has afforded us a lot of different opportunities and cool things that I think were what I was looking for, when I started working in, or wanted to get into sports. And then as far as HallPass goes, during the time I've been here, we've worked with adidas. We had our Always Live property, the Lot Impact Trophy, which was a college football award. Obviously, as someone who played football my whole life, that was a very, very cool thing to work on, just because I was getting to meet the the top college football players in the country that I was watching every Saturday. So yeah, there's just been tons and tons of things that we've gotten to do, and opportunities that we've had as a company here at HallPass that are very cool, and that I've been very blessed and lucky to work on and work people I've gotten to work with and meet.
Absolutely. I want to wind the clock back a little bit and kind of go back to the beginning of the summer, because this is being recorded in September, right? For us, July and the months leading up to the NBA Summer League are very, very busy. Talk a little bit about what the day in the life is like for Max Miller Media as we prepare for NBA Summer League. Just to paint a picture for all of our students listening, to really get an understanding of what your role entails, the different things that you do, and what you're focused on a day-to-day basis. I've
kind of tried to take what I've learned over, every single year and basically staff different positions so that people can help, right? And it's taken a lot of learning to learn to let go and to let other people, do things that like I already knew how to do, and be that, kind of person just overseeing it, not just actually, physically doing it. So that's typically what I'm doing leading up to it, is finding those people that can fill those roles, and then preparing them to fulfill those roles, having conversations, outlining job responsibilities and things like that. We also, as far as marketing Summer League, we're building video material to market Summer League. We're building video material to play around the arena, inside the gyms, around the town, in the taxis, the casinos, all that. So we're building marketing material. We're staffing I'm staffing the event from a production standpoint and an AV standpoint. And then I'm just kind of preparing each day. Once that schedule comes out, I'm looking at each game and trying to do research on the different stories that we can tell on a social media perspective for the NBA Summer League channels, and a marketing perspective, to try to sell tickets for the event. And then, preparing all the different ancillary events that HallPass and NBA Summer League or VSL Productions kind of runs. There's tons of different things going around outside of just the game of basketball that's going on the court, and we want to try to tell the story of all of that, and then also, and if it's any kind of event, we want to brand it. We want to make it look bigger than it is, and that usually entails some sort of branding, whether it's print, digital, whatever, and then whatever kind of event it is, if there's projectors or videos or slideshows or microphones and PA systems and things like that. Those are all kind of areas that my team, I guess, supports.
Yeah. So you mentioned or a few of the different roles that you had to fill, or you mentioned the fact that there are a number of different roles that you have to fill, right? And you mentioned, your growth as a professional, going from somebody that does everything to somebody that hires and now manages. Can you talk to us a little bit about what those roles are, even just a few of them, and kind of what it is that you're looking for when you're actually hiring for those roles?
For sure. And I think this year I I think hit a home run in terms of staffing. I was very, very, lucky. I had a great team around me, and a lot of that came from people that were returning, but it also came from new people that were, hungry and eager to learn and to go a little bit above and beyond what was asked of them. But to give you an outline, I guess we had our social media production team. So there was 3 guys that were focused on just filming and turning around clips for social media. They also double dipped a little bit, and a lot of the material that they would film around the court and around the game was used in material now after the fact to tell the story of what we've done there. So, them going a little bit above and beyond and not just filming the action on the court or, making those just little short social clips and social videos, but also capturing, other stuff as well so that we can tell this different variety of stories after the fact. And then we have like people that are helping ingest the media, assistant editors, stuff like that are a little more green. I had an intern from that is a grad student at Chapman that, understands the editing software, but just doesn't have a ton of experience in editing. So he got to learn be immersed in that platform for 10 days. And I saw his skill set grow from day 1 to day 10 and his comfort and learning, things like shortcuts and stuff like that on the platform that were expediting his workflow and things like that, that just come from on the job experience. And then with Sports Business Classroom, I mean, we had Quinn Corrigan helping out with our AV stuff and the PA systems. And then we had someone in there to produce videos and to capture everything that was going on just from a base, a cam in the back of the room on the speakers, but also, having a secondary camera walking around, filming alternate angles to be able to cut, more sexy marketing material for after the fact. And then, with all that, we have to sync all that to audio. So he was making sure that, while he's capturing these different things, he's recording the audio as well, because not only do we want to use that for sound bites and stuff later, but a lot of the speakers and a lot of the students want to go back and listen to what was said. So, those are a few of the things. And then when we have our other events like the coaches clinic and the different seminars and stuff that are happening, same type of deal. We're filming it. We're providing PA support, AV support for whether it's digital signage or slideshows or presentations that are going on, and then capturing all of that from a video and photo perspective as well.
So now that you're in a position to hire for all these different roles, what's something that, obviously for every job, I'm sure you look for something different, right? But what are some of the key things that stand out to you when you're actually looking to fill these roles? And where do you generally find some of these people?
Yeah, I mean, I post on the same Chapman Facebook group still that is where I found this internship. And that's where I've posted, like I've done things on a variety of different job platforms and job boards and done things word of mouth, but it seems like time and time again, that same Chapman Facebook group just keeps coming back and returning good quality candidates that are hungry to learn and have a good base knowledge to be able to do the job and then to help them, excel to that next step. But I think I try to find people that are where I was at that time, in my life, mm-hmm. that have a variety of skill sets and that aren't trying to just pigeonhole themselves into one specific thing as just a cameraman or just an editor or, just an audio engineer. Someone that has that base knowledge and understanding of several different things. I think that goes a long way. And if that is reflected on their resumes or on their sample demo reels, mm-hmm. That's something that fits in well with this company and with what we do.
Yeah, and you mentioned resumes and demo reels and all that fun stuff, and we're going to talk a little bit about how to do that, how to actually build that, right? But as it relates to video production and content creation and all that good stuff, right? That is a field or an area of work where you have to make things in order to be able to get jobs mm-hmm. in them, right? You can't just be a body and be somebody that's smart and kind of walk into the building and, hope to get experience. Is that accurate?
Oh, 100%. And it used to be, I feel like when I was coming up, I was, old enough that it wasn't that everyone had a camera in their hand or in their pocket at all times. Even video editing software and stuff like that was still just like, I think I got into it right when they stopped going from, deck to deck. Linear editing was what it was called, and editing softwares in Final Cut Pro were just kind of starting to become a thing. But nowadays there's so many opportunities to create. TikTok makes it so simple and so easy, and these different platforms and templates and stuff like that. But really, and this was again what I regret about Chapman, is not going out and filming, because I looked down on the level of play that was on the field. That's I don't see that as a valid excuse. You could go to any high school right now and film baseball, basketball, football, if you're looking to get into sports, if that's what you have access to, and be able to create something, no matter the level of play, that shows someone like me that you know what you're doing, right? That you know how to frame a shot, that you understand frame rate, color, white balance, exposure, those types of things. And then if you're editing it, that you understand, pacing and cutting to music and transitions and things like that. Like that, just doing that, it doesn't matter. I'm not really, interested in, per se, the level of play on the field. And I think just going out and doing that and practicing it and doing it more and more and more, it's only going to make you better, right? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of, a big piece of advice that I have is, if you're trying to break into this, go out and do it. Don't wait for an opportunity to get paid or an internship or someone to teach you. YouTube is an invaluable resource, and, you can start filming on your phone if you're really, really that passionate about it and don't have the resources to access a camera, and create things that are, pretty spectacular, now with the technology that we have.
Right. And I would argue that actually getting engaged in a smaller school could potentially be even more beneficial, mm-hmm. right? You go to a big name school. I'm going to use USC mm-hmm. as an example, since I'm an SC guy. Fight on. And there's going to be a bunch of rules placed on you as far as what it is you get to create and how you're mm-hmm. going to do it, right? Whereas if you go to a smaller school that's not winning any games, right? The goal is just make things look good, right? Mm-hmm. And you may not have spectacular plays to create content out of, right? But the opportunities and the what's the word?
The access.
The access, mm-hmm. right? And what you're allowed to do from a pure creative standpoint mm-hmm. is probably so much greater than you would at a big name school right. that's very structured, right. knows what they want.
And with NIL deals in place right now, that who's the quarterback for USC right now?
Caleb Williams.
He ain't going to go sit down with the video producer for free, right? He's getting paid to do all that stuff, right? So, and I got to give a shout out here to Logan Bierman, who I kind of look back after seeing what he did at Chapman, and that's what made me start to regret not taking advantage of the opportunities that I had around the athletics there, because that's what he did at Chapman, was used the small school and the access that he had to all the athletes, because they all wanted to do stuff with him. Like, they really wanted, because you're not expecting to get that kind of production and attention at Chapman, but he would, try things out, test things, learn with the football teams, the basketball teams, the soccer teams, because they were more than happy
right.
to come in and do that if he was making them look good. And him and Ben Weiner were two guys that, were working, kind of interning for me at the time, and working with us a little bit at HallPass. But I think they quickly surpassed, some of the stuff that we were doing here, because they were using Chapman as a testing ground and not looking down on it. And they gained it. And I saw the opportunities that they were gaining very, very fast because of the quality of work that they were doing, because they just were, put in the practice and put in the work, and were doing it with the resources that they had, with, Division III sports.
Right. No, and I think that one of the most important things that I want people to come out of this episode with is the fact that you can, like you said, if you're passionate about creating videos, you can shoot videos, post them on YouTube, you mm-hmm. can play on TikTok, whatever it might be, right? Especially this day and age, nobody needs to give you permission to create content, right? You can create content about whatever it is that you're interested in. And the truth of the matter is, people are doing so. right? And sitting in front of me, I have somebody that in middle school was learning all aspects of production. So for those of you listening out there that want to get into, video content creation, production, whatever it might be, if any of this sounds interesting to you, similarly to how Max was at Chapman looking around and thinking, man, these people are creating a lot of cool stuff. What I want you to do is look around and realize that there are middle schoolers learning these skills right now, right? There are young creators on YouTube making millions and millions of dollars. And what separates them from everybody else is the fact that they're just really, really passionate about what they do. And they are truly trying to master their craft. And I think that's what's interesting about this day and age. Whether you want to get into content creation, you want to learn to develop websites, you want to get into whatever it might be, there are so many opportunities out there for you to not only practice your craft, but show the world what it is you're capable of. And what's beautiful is I think we live in a day and age here where the best ideas win, right? The best content creators win. You don't care either way whether somebody went to USC or Harvard or whether they went to Chapman or community college, right? If they're the best man for the job, that's what we care about these days. And that's what's very, very cool about kind of the era that we're in.
Yeah, and it can be intimidating. I mean, it can be incredibly intimidating seeing the caliber of content that is coming out from, like you said, middle schoolers. But, you kind of just have to go for it, and you have to try, and you have to put your work out there and not compare it. And it's so hard. It's so hard not to compare yourself. And especially, as an athlete or someone that was in sports, I'm hyper competitive, right? But that's been something that I've really had to work hard and try to do and not compare myself to other people and compare my work to theirs, because it can be incredibly discouraging. Right?
Yeah.
But you got it. That's part of the learning curve, the learning aspect. And, everybody started somewhere. Everyone's coming from different, everyone has a different path. There's people that get into this in their 40s and 50s. There's people that get into it at, 10, 11, 12 years old, right? It's, you just got to realize that you have your own path and, you'll get there. But you're not going to get there if you don't try.
That's right.
If you don't, put in the practice, put in the work, and put it out there.
Yeah, there's a good book out there called Show Your Work, right? Which really dives into that topic, right? Because as a creative, I think the author is, if I remember correctly, was specifically talking about books, right? But whether you're an artist or a content creator or a writer, right? In this day and age, you have to show your work, right? And the truth of the matter is not everybody's going to like your work. Not everybody's going to understand what it is that you did. And yes, there will be a lot of critiques, but you have to put in the reps if you're going to continue to improve.
Exactly. Or there might not be a lot of critiques because your work might not be getting seen or whatever, because the platforms are so ever changing, and what they, organically promote and what gets views and whatnot is different. But I think the lesson that, needs to be taken out of every single piece of content that you make is it, did you learn something from it, or did you get better, or do it just a little bit of a step above the previous piece that you did? I mean, I feel like when I kind of shifted my mindset to that, was when I started to see more just trajectory and growth in everything for me.
So I want to learn a little bit more about this because I love video. I consume video. I critique your videos, which I'm sure you don't appreciate sometimes. At the same time, I'm really not that well versed as far as how this all gets created. So talk to me a little bit about your current tech stack, right? So for somebody like me, okay, I've got an iPhone, I've got a MacBook Pro, right? I can shoot video. I know how to get it onto my computer. But if I'm just starting out as somebody who's interested in getting better as a video creator, right? What types of software do I need to start downloading, and how do I start getting reps so that I can start getting better at that?
For our line of work, I mean, the Adobe Suite, the Adobe Creative Suite, Adobe Premiere is kind of the industry standard. Final Cut X is also, great. great platform, but really, I think Adobe Premiere is kind of the industry standard outside of Hollywood. Hollywood uses it a lot as well, but I know Avid is a big editing platform in Hollywood. But Adobe Premiere is phenomenal. DaVinci Resolve is also up and coming, or I guess widely used as well. But Adobe Premiere is what I use, and I had to learn to teach myself a new platform after Final Cut 7, switched to Final Cut X as I was graduating from college. And it became this entirely different software, essentially. So I switched over to Adobe Premiere, and that was a learning curve. But once I learned, I had to learn this new software, I realized, I can learn a new software. I can, teach myself something. So that kind of helped me to take on Photoshop and to take on After Effects and to take on InDesign and start to understand these different platforms. And those are all platforms that the more you use them, the more you're going to understand them. And now with, the available resources of online learning, both, paid courses and free on YouTube and various other websites, you can learn all that stuff and be getting, paid to do those, use these platforms professionally, without any degree. And no one's ever asked to see my degree. One of my college professors said that. He's like, in my 50 years in the industry, no one's once asked to see a transcript or a degree for grades. Like they want to see what your work is in this industry, right? In video production, they want to see your work. So, you can do that with a subscription to, an Adobe suite, which if, you're getting paid to do any work, it's pretty much worth it. And there's so many resources to be able to learn, and you can advance as fast as, your mental capacity allows it by just continuing to practice and create things.
Again, that theme of show your work keeps coming up, and we're going to get into some of the resources that you recommend that everybody follow so that they can, no matter where it is that they're at in the process, they can continue to get better. But so what about transitions and different elements and stock photos and all that good stuff? Can you share with the audience some of the platforms that you use? Because one of the things I'm always amazed at is when you present videos to us, right? There's always, it always seems to be that there's just different elements. There's different transitions. Some of the stuff looks like it belongs on SportsCenter. And I always marvel at how you did that. Right. And then I eventually learned that, these are some of these things you can create yourself. Some of these things you can buy. Talk a little bit about where you can find some of those resources for somebody that's like an amateur like me.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, one of my favorite resources for any asset is a website and a company called Envato. They have music, stock photos, video templates, video graphics templates. They have Premiere, like literally edits or project files that you can download and use in Premiere Pro that, it's as simple as putting your shot, in each shot slot, I guess you'll call it. And it comes out as this sexy edit with all these transitions and graphics and right. It, looks incredible. And it, and what I learned from, the Frischbergs, who I worked with at the first Summer League, was they would take those templates and things like that, and they would just take little assets from each one and then create their own, right? So it's like it's part of creativity. It's like taking pieces of people's work or taking something that someone else has done that you admire and putting your own spin on it. That's what they would do. They would take 5 or 6 different templates, take the parts of it that they liked, and make a very, very unique, creative, incredible video that when you step back and look at it, you're like, that must have taken 10,000 hours to make, and they did it in an afternoon. And again, it came from practice and skill and work and having an eye for it. But yeah, there's resources out there like Envato that make it easier to do that. And as far as stock photography and videos go, Shutterstock is a great resource. Which I use a lot. Premium Beat, Rocket Stock, Motion Array. Those are all some of the websites that I know have these templates, royalty-free music, stock video, stock photos, things like that available.
Yeah, and you mentioned storytelling, right? We've talked about some of the sexy elements and shooting stuff. I'm curious, do you have a process as far as how you determine what you're going to shoot? as far as how it relates to the story you're trying to tell? Like how do you determine what to shoot?
I think I still, even when I show up on site at anything, I go back to, 7th grade, 8th grade, some of the basic lessons that we learned in terms of telling a story with a camera. And it's shooting in sequences, wide, medium, tight. So shooting a wide shot of something, shooting a medium shot of something, and shooting a tight shot of something in terms of composition. And then bringing that, into the editing, and you have the coverage that you need to make an edit that tells a story. So that's kind of the initial approach, that I take, and then it's finding the different elements in a situation scenario that I can use to piece together a story. And it comes from experience, it comes from preference, it comes from editing style. Try to find the signs and the branding and the different non-moving thing, things that aren't alive in a setting that that I can capture, but then cut together with the people that are generally in a setting, whether it's a sporting event or a seminar or a classroom or whatever, that you edit together to kind of tell the most visually aesthetic, compelling story possible.
And I would bet that whether you know it or not, a lot of how you want to tell a story or how you want a video to end up looking comes from some of the inspiration that you gain from looking at different organizations or different videos or whatever it might be.
For sure. Oh yeah. Obviously just like everybody else, I watch videos on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, all that stuff. And yeah, I try to bookmark and save things that I think are cool. And then before I go out on a shoot, watch some of those things for inspiration and say, wow, I really like that. I'm going to try to replicate that, or I'm going to try to do this, but it inspired me to do it in my own way, this way. So, while social media and all these things can be, damaging and be negatives, they can you can also use them for inspiration, and they can be seen as a positive, right? And learning tools.
Absolutely. And that's one of the pieces of advice I give a lot of young people who are asking me about getting jobs in sports or learning more about a certain business, whatever it may be. And one of the pieces of advice that I give them is that, we're all on social media. We're all scrolling and following our favorite organizations, our favorite teams, whatever it may be. Right? Rather than just consume it, like look at it and try to determine what the person that produced it was trying to accomplish by doing so. Mm-hmm. Right? And I think that once that shift happens, that's where you start to become a pro. Mm-hmm. Right? Is when you're looking at whatever you're trying to get involved in, you're looking at it as a business. What are these people trying to accomplish? Right. And I know that I do that. And I know from a lot of the resources that you share with our team that you're constantly doing the same. Right. You're looking at it. You're thinking, man, that's really super cool. And you're also thinking, okay, how does this apply to what we're trying to accomplish? Right. And I think gaining that inspiration and being exposed to all of the cutting edge ideas that are out there and what people that are pushing the limits of their field, I think that's an invaluable skill. So just piece of advice for the listeners, check out your favorite team's feed, okay? But rather than just consume it, try to get an understanding of what the people that are managing the social channel are trying to accomplish.
Well, and then find out who those people are and follow them, because they post behind the scenes stuff of what they're doing. And there's even people that go as far as now they've created courses on everything that they know and what they do and how they do it for their line of work, right? So, you can see someone that you admire that films the NFL that now has a tutorial video on it on their YouTube or on their social media, or even has, hours and hours of a paid online education course that they will teach you everything that they know. And that's, a huge resource. I love, if I see a video done by a team or posted by a team, I'll do my due diligence and digging and find out who the person is for that team that made it. And then I'll follow them, and they'll, not all of them, but a lot of them will post, behind the scenes stuff, or even their a popular trend for video people that edit videos is to post their sequence, what their timeline looks like with the video playing above it.
Right.
And I find that fascinating. And I'm like, oh, wow, I do it just like that. Or that person's way less organized than I am. Or that person's so organized that everything's color coded and on its own tracks. And, oh, they used, sound effect here. And it's that simple. Like just that transition and that sound effect looked that good. Like I have all those and I use them all the time. I just don't use them together. Right. So, but by following the actual creators who make the videos for the teams, I've been able to learn a ton, and it's made things not seem so far-fetched.
Right, because at the end of the day, they're just mixing and matching some of the same things that you're using, right? And it's like we started talking about at the beginning of the conversation, right? You looking around Chapman, seeing what everybody else was creating, right? I mean, the fact of the matter is, there's 30 NBA teams out there, 32 NFL teams. They all have content creators.
Well, and some of the college teams are better content creators than some of the professional sports. So there's hundreds of and thousands of talented creators out there that are doing things in sports.
Right, and pushing boundaries, right? And the fact of the matter is, if you go, like you said, if you go look at who they are, what they've done, how they've gained experience, like the gap between where you are today and who those people are, sure, there's some creativity and some talent, but for the most part, it's just hard work, right? It's just getting in the reps. So for those of you who are serious about getting into video creation, content production, whatever it might be, just realize that like that's there for you, right? You just need to put in the reps, read the right resources, gain the right inspiration, and really just get to work. So I want to get to some of the resources we were talking about, right? Because part of what we do here at Sports Business Classroom is help our listeners get better and figure out what they need to do in order to get to from point A to point Z, wherever it might be in their career. So can you talk about some of the resources, some of the websites you look at, some of the blogs, some of the podcasts, whatever it might be, some stuff that, maybe some of our listeners can start listening to or watching, whatever it might be, so that they can up their game?
For sure. So a lot of the resources that I use for stock video, for photos, for templates, for music and things like that also have blogs. And I don't necessarily visit the site just to go to the blog, but I subscribe, to their to the newsletter that they put out with the highlighted blog articles of the week or the month or however often they share them. So Shutterstock, Premium Beat, Rocket Stock, Envato, they all have blogs that they post articles on how to do things, on technical comparisons and advice and the trends and things like that. Blog.frame.io is another one. Frame.io is a platform that we don't use, but I follow the blog because I think it's a valuable resource for content creation. You taught me how to use Google Alerts and sign up for that. So, for us,
that makes me sound old school. Google Alerts. I don't even know if that still exists.
It does. I still get the emails.
Still get the alerts.
Yeah, for the things that I've signed up for and subscribed to. But then, YouTube channels. There's tons of creators and people on YouTube out there that are very, very valuable and that are talented and a great resource.
Give me some of them. Who are some of your favorite creators?
So one I admire and that creates very simple but very effective tutorials is her handle is Premier Gal. Justin Odisho is another very, very popular one who a lot of people probably are familiar with. I mean, Peter McKinnon is again a hugely popular YouTube creator that I admire. Chris Burkard. They're people that both do a lot of outdoor stuff, which is a big hobby of mine. That's something that I like to do outside of work is outdoorsy things. So combining, two hobbies and passions of mine, video production and creativity with, hiking, outdoors life and travel, stuff like that. There's a person that I think has created some incredible YouTube videos. I'm not sure if he's currently doing it, but he films for NFL Films and is very talented. His name is Dom the DP, and
Shout out to Dom the DP.
Shout out to Dom the DP. I've gotten a chance to talk to him and meet him and have a conversation with him. But he films for NFL Films, and I got to learn about how he pursued his dream to do that. But during COVID, the world was shut down, and so he just went in his garage one night a week and would make a tutorial video about and break down on a whiteboard basically how he covers football and how he covers the NFL and how he's gotten to the point in his career. And then he's done other things comparing lenses and things like that. So, really stuff to nerd out about, but stuff that I find very valuable, entertaining, and a great resource.
Well, look, to people who aren't interested in video production, yes, it is, it may be nerdy and you may be nerding out, right? But at the end of the day, for those people who are really passionate about storytelling and content, you're not going to find that nerdy, right? And I think that's the difference between, good content creators and great content creators is, how passionate you are and how much work you're really willing to put in.
I'll give you just a quick example of how many of these people that I follow, and I think it kind of came full circle with me this last weekend. I was at a wedding, and this was the third. I've been to a lot of weddings in the last couple of years, 2 or 3 years, and this was the third time that I was at a wedding, and I recognized somebody at the wedding that was either there or working the wedding that I follow on Instagram or Twitter, but had never met, had no idea I had any connection to them, but I just admired their work.
That's awesome.
And I went up to them and said, hey, you have no idea who I am. I really don't know who you are, but I really admire your work because I follow you on, X, Y, and Z platform. And yeah.
And we'll put some links in the show notes to some of these people so that everybody who's listening can actually go check out their work and all that good stuff. So you mentioned you're an outdoorsman and that being an outdoorsman, you get to combine your passions and being outdoors and videography and photography. Do you have a favorite piece of content you've created outside of work that you want to share with the group?
Yeah, I have a couple. And what I like to do when I do outdoor stuff and hike and backpack and travel and stuff like that is just do still photography. And I found that it has made me a better videographer by, having a hobby of still photography.
How so?
Just different things, composition, color, technical, certain technical things, and thinking about it in a different way. And then, as with video as my job, I do find it sometimes when I'm on vacation and friends or family are like, oh, make a travel video. I was like, I kind of do. I spend a lot of time filming and editing, but photography and editing photos is just a different way of attacking something, of attacking a trip, but or attacking storytelling, I guess, what have you. But there's some drone photos that I got on a trip to Big Sur a couple summers ago that was at sunset that were, I was pretty stoked on how they turned out during sunset. And then I went on a backpacking trip, my first solo backpacking trip a few years ago into Sequoia National Park, and I went way back in the backcountry, and it was in May, so late in the season, but there ended up being about 10 feet of snow on the ground, which I wasn't expecting. So I got some pretty epic photos back there, but I think it was more so just the physical feat and the cold that I had to endure that probably was more so why I was so proud of them. But yeah, just those were a couple different things that I've done that just how the imagery turned out. I was pretty pumped on.
I mean, what do you look for when you're, obviously when you bust out your camera, you're looking to get an awesome photo, right? What is it that you're looking for? I mean, if you can give like an amateur photographer any sort of direction, right? What would that be?
For sure. So some of the times that I've realized I've captured like the best things that I've done is I've gone into the trip with a shot in mind. So I'll see a travel photographer or travel videographer that does amazing night shots. And, here in Southern California, we don't have much access to sky, to, starry night photography.
A lot of light pollution.
So, if I go, I've gone on, I went on a kick of night photography, and I was watching tutorials and watching people do it. And I'm like, that's so sick. I'm going to do that on my next trip, and would go out to the desert and, go to some cool ghost town in the middle of nowhere and take, pictures of at night of these buildings that I would, play around with lights and stuff like headlamps and things like that with the stars and the Milky Way going over them and stuff like that. But it was just like getting the inspiration from someone and then learning how they did it and then going out and try it. So, it's all, whether it's professionally or as a hobby, like it all kind of is same practice.
Yeah. Yeah. And what about from a work perspective? What's your favorite piece of content you've developed?
So some of the longer form stuff that we've done, I guess it goes back to what I studied in college, is the longer form storytelling. I remember in particular the Laud Impact Trophy, one of the last years we did it, 2017 or 2018. I had kind of watched as Fox Sports that broadcasted the ceremony had produced features on all of the different the different finalists, the 4 finalists that we had the years prior. And that last year, Albert, I guess, was like, Max, they're not going to do it, so you create these features. So, I created these 4 features or 5 features over in about a week and a half on, these 4 finalists and on these different philanthropic programs that these features ended up running in, and I kind of helped produce this whole broadcast, that was a nationally televised on Fox Sports broadcast for this award ceremony. So
right. That
was something that I remember spending long nights in the office, sitting at my computer, editing, and trying to. I just put my all into it, I guess, and to the point where I wasn't going home. I'd stay. I think I would stay here till 2 or 3 in the morning, multiple nights in a row, to try to put together the best product that I could. So, that was something that I was very proud of.
Yeah, absolutely. They turned out fantastic, and they were on national TV. And you mentioned long form storytelling. Right, a lot of what we do here, at least for some of our properties currently, is short form storytelling. Right? Can you talk a little bit about the difference? And is that a difficult mindset shift to go through? Because again, you have a lot of different projects here at HallPass for a number of different properties and different stories that need to be told in different amounts of time. Right? Talk a little bit about how you kind of manage that and think about that.
Yeah, I mean, it is definitely a different mindset and a different approach, and it's taken me now years to kind of understand from a marketing perspective, what platform a piece of content would be best served on, and then how to create a piece of content that best serves that platform, because it is the best way to do something these days is to create it specifically for that platform.
Sure.
What looks good on Twitter is not going to be the same on TikTok or YouTube or even Instagram.
Well, even just the use cases for both of those are completely different.
Exactly.
Right? What people are going to those platforms for is completely different.
Right. So yeah, it is a little bit of a different approach, and it's trying to figure out what we're ultimately trying to do with that piece of content, to try to figure out the approach to the edit. With short attention spans now, like trying to keep things quick and punchy and under a minute. And if there's a soundbite, you're not seeing just the person talk on camera, but there's quick cuts, and whether it's cutting in and out just on their face, or flashy transitions to B-roll or coverage or graphics, like those are all things that I think help a piece of content be more engaging, in this day and age, and what people are accustomed to seeing.
I've heard you talk about shooting with the edit in mind, and you kind of alluded to that a little bit as it relates to the photos that you got when you were in Big Sur. Talk a little bit about kind of what that mindset looks like, and how you make sure that you're shooting with the edit in mind.
Yeah, I mean, this is again something I kind of learned early on in my teenage years, doing production and going out and telling news stories. But just that, after about 15 to 20 minutes or however long it is that you've been shooting in an event or whatever it is that you're covering, start to think about, okay, how am I going to intro this piece, right? What's going to be my first shot? What's going to be my second shot? If there's interviews or any kind of sound bites, what are the sound bites in here? Kind of envisioning what the edit's going to look like while you're actually doing the cinematography. And there's different, techniques or strategies to filming and stuff. And I'm someone that I've made the mistake too many times of not pressing record or missing something because I pressed record. So I typically sit there and roll the whole time, which makes it a lot more difficult in the edit. But like something that still stood out to me was someone that I was in class with in college. Literally, he shot everything. He was an amazing cinematographer, and he is an incredible cinematographer now, and making documentaries and things like that. But even junior, senior year of college, I remember getting his card to edit the content, and I didn't have to do any editing. Like it was shot like this shot, then in sequence of like a cool edit, everything cut together well. So like basically the cinematographer was so good at what he did that he told the story in the edit just by, in camera, essentially, like what we used to have to do with tape. Like you press start and you press stop, and that was how you edited.
That's one way to do it, right?
Right. But now, there's different clips, but he was so good. He captured everything the first time, and it was, started and stopped at the, I would have to trim the lengths a little bit, but for the most part, like it told the story that I wanted to tell in sequence. And that was that was how I realized, wow, he is a very, very effective, talented cinematographer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sounds that sounds fantastic, but it sounds like there's a lot of opportunity there. Maybe not for this particular gentleman or individual, but it sounds like the camera could potentially be off at times, especially as it relates to sports or things, live action, whatever it might be. Right. That you may not capture everything if you're pressing the on and off button and not getting everything, right? Is that the downside to kind of shooting it that so closely?
Yeah. I mean, I think it just comes with experience, and it's all personal preference and experience. Like I think, there's also the alternate of it where you are filming everything, but you're filming nothing at the same time because there's no intention behind what you're shooting.
Right. And then the editor has to go through a ton of footage, and it's
and there may not be anything in there, but you're like, I just filmed for an hour, or, I filmed for 15 minutes and I covered this whole room, and you're like, well, there's nothing in there because you didn't film anything at all. And the camera was on, but there was never any intention on framing a shot and capturing a reaction or capturing, this. So that's, I guess, what I mean when I, say keep the edit in mind while you're shooting is, you're getting an establishing shot to set the scene. Then you're getting, reaction shots to cut away to and from. You're getting cutaway shots of tights of whether there's someone's hands on something. You film a conversation like you see in, old reference with 60 Minutes and stuff like that. You see the person's hands, might be meddling to tell the story of them, whatever, if they're nervous or whatever it is.
Sure.
Those are all like things that, storytelling techniques that you learn and that you pick up and that you can pick up from watching different things like that when you're on site capturing, it's making movie magic. It's all done in editing where, you might shoot a cutaway from behind a person's head, but you shoot it 15 minutes after they're talking because you remember what they said and that you can use those cutaways, right? So,
yeah.
Being a very effective cinematographer, especially for live events and things like that, you really, really have to be there. It takes a lot of focus, a lot of attention to detail, and a lot of being very aware of what's happening and how to best tell that story in the editing room.
So what does that look like prior to you shooting? As far as is there a document that you produce that you outline, okay, here's the shot list, here are the different kind of scenes that we're going to want to create, right? If you're shooting with the edit in mind, right, presumably you've thought through what the edit looks like, and there's some sort of documentation about that, and it doesn't all just live in, the director or the producer's head, right?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, there's, you can make treatments that essentially describe what the final video is going to look like before you go out and shoot it. And that's kind of what, a lot of people have to do professionally to pitch, how do you make commercials and things like that. But even covering live events, like you can script out your highlight video before you go into a game just by knowing, I'm going to get a shot of someone running on the field and then start to think of a creative way to get that shot. I'm going to have a shot of a quarterback in the huddle on a long lens calling out the play, right? Or if you don't have the long lens, finding him coming off the sideline and being in a position to capture that. Whether it's just, it's, if you have that treatment and you have the idea of what the edit is going to look like going into the shoot, no matter, what it is, it's going to be, more effective in terms of what the output's going to look like.
Yeah, that makes me think about, so Stephen Covey wrote a book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And he has, I'm going to botch the actual quote, but begin with the end in mind, right? And then he refers to your life, right? What would you want your life to be, right? And if you actually look at what that is, then it's pretty clear what the steps are that you're going to need to take, right? Or the steps that you're going to need to take in order to get there become a lot more clear. And it sounds like that's what you're referring to.
Oh yeah. Very, very, very similar to the video production process.
Max, one of the things you're most famous for around here is your 7 deadly camera sins. Can you walk us through what those are?
Yeah. So again, something I learned very young. I think this is one of the first, weeks of school in junior high. We get, learning about videography and cinematography and composition and just different things. And one thing to effectively, cover an event or, anything that you're going to make a video of is by shooting it properly. And there's 7 deadly camera sins to avoid that I find myself time and time again just always reminding myself of, because they're quintessential to learning cinematography. So they are, number one is fire hosing, which is not focusing the camera on one thing at all and moving it around too much.
Okay.
Number 2 is snap shooting. So that's pressing start and stop on the record button too close together. So you're not, having a long enough clip to be able to edit it. Number 3 is head hunting, which is just showing someone's head, not having the proper headroom. The rule of thirds is another way to describe that. Backlighting, so having the sun or a light source behind the subject's head so that you can't see their face.
My wife yells at me when I do that.
Backlight,
yeah.
She's the makeup. She wants to be able to see it, right?
Yes.
The makeup artist. Motor zooming, so zooming in and out too much and without purpose or not smoothly to affect without intention. That's makes it very, very tough to have a clean edit, and is noticeable in the edit if it's not done with intention. Upstanding, which is shooting looking up at someone, which again can be used effectively, but generally, especially if you're first starting out, like keeping the camera kind of at eye level is a safer way to do it. You can, shoot up at someone and, not get the best angle of them. And
nobody likes that angle of their face either. My wife yells at me about that too.
Exactly. And then the last one would be jogging, which is running with the camera or walking with the camera and having it be kind of shaky, I guess. And a lot of these, like, again, pretty much all of them, they can be used effectively if, you have that technique in mind for the edit. But generally speaking, if you avoid all of those, you're going to have a cleaner video, a more stable shot, right? That's easier to go in and edit.
Fantastic. I know I probably am guilty of all of those, but I took some notes here and hopefully I'll be a better photographer for it. So Max, you've been in the game for 10 years now. I'm curious, what's one piece of advice you'd want to tell your younger self?
Yeah, I mean, definitely kind of what I was alluding to earlier of just take advantage of the opportunities and don't wait for the situation to be perfect. And, I got extremely lucky that I got this opportunity with HallPass, but I could have gone, I could have gone the rest of my career without getting that opportunity in sports because I was waiting for the opportunity to be employed in, producing sports videos to create sports videos. Whereas I think, I should have been creating sports videos before, that was actually my profession.
Now you've created a lot of cool content. We talked about your content that ended up on Fox, right? You've created content that's ended up on the NBA Summer League channels. You've created commercials that have aired nationally. You've done a lot and accomplished a lot in your career so far. Do you have any goals or dreams as far as video production goes or content creation goes? Like what would be a huge win for you in your career?
I still admire like ESPN 30 for 30s and how big documentaries are becoming and documentary series are becoming on Netflix. That creating a long form documentary series that is whether it's an ESPN 30 for 30 or it's just received as stuff are on Netflix, like the Manti Te'o documentary and things like that. Creating something like that I can look at and say I'm incredibly proud of is I guess a career goal of mine.
So before we finish up, is there anybody you'd like to thank or anything else you'd want to share with our audience?
Yeah, I mean, I've been incredibly lucky to surround myself by people that have mentored me, such as yourself, such as Albert Hall, Brian Williams at UNLV. Definitely, wouldn't be anywhere near where I am professionally without you guys. Brian, I owe a lot of my technical knowledge and skill set, in my professional life to him, gotten the opportunity to learn from him. And then, you and Albert have both taught me a lot about, business and marketing and professional skills and just how to be a professional. And with that, I just want to open myself up to, to people to reach out, right? I mean, people are accessible. I want to be accessible. If you're looking to get into this, reach out to me on social. I have people that, that reach out to me, and I want to be there for people just as you guys, have been there for me. So, I mean, I want to be a resource to people just as I have these, incredible resources to me.
Where can people find you online?
Max14Miller is my handle on Twitter, Instagram. I use TikTok to view things and for inspiration. I don't really post anything on.
You're not dancing on TikTok?
I'm not dancing on TikTok. That not to say that can't change, but as
I think we want to see Max dance on TikTok.
No, but yeah, Instagram and Twitter. I try to post and share a lot of the stuff that I do here at HallPass as much as I can, and as well as personally, and part of my hobbies and my travel photography and stuff like that.
Yeah, and your photography is amazing. We'll make sure to share links to everything in the show notes following this. But Max, thank you so much for making the time. Very, very proud of how much you've grown over the past 7 years here and all the cool content you've created, and really appreciate you dropping all this knowledge. And for everybody listening, I mean, Max has a wealth of knowledge. I highly, highly recommend that you check out the resources that he's shared with us and that we'll outline in the show notes. Because again, like I said, the gap between where you are today as a content creator and where you want to be is nothing more than a bunch of hard work. So Max, appreciate you, buddy. And there you have it, my friends. I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Max Miller. You can find the show notes for everything we discussed at sportsbusinessclassroom.com/Max-Miller. And if you listen and enjoyed the podcast, we'd really love to hear from you. Let us know your thoughts and any follow-up questions you may have by tagging us at Sports Business Classroom and at Max14Miller. Big thank you to our sponsors, Sports Business Classroom and HallPass Media, and thanks again for listening. We will see you here next week on the Sports Business Classroom audio experience.